All right, so one of the main reasons why memoir men exist in the first place is because we realize that we do a lot of things and we live a life as men, especially those of us who have the responsibility of being husbands, fathers, whatever, carry a certain weight and responsibility. And this weight of responsibility almost cannot be expressed or shared unless we come together. But most of the times, what men do, as we know, get into isolation, especially when things get tough, right? So this is one of the reasons why memoir men exist. But part of this idea of carrying the weight of responsibility of family and provision, I'm starting to rethink it a little bit. Now, the weight part, I believe, is still something that is legitimate. It is a reality. There is a weight that's being carried in the sense of this is my duty, this is my obligation, this is my job, this is my purpose. To be a loving husband, to be a caring father, to be a loving brother, all of that. However, I guess what I'm starting to question, and you can tell me if in error or not, but I'm starting to question the whole responsibility part. I think when I think about the weight, I think about it in the sense of, it is a burden of such, because it's something that we want to do. So the burden is not a negative thing, right? It's a drive. It's what motivates us. It gives us purpose. A matter of fact, it makes us more alive. To be a good husband makes me alive. To be a loving father makes me alive. I live for it. What I'm starting to really question when we think of responsibility and weight in the sense of a negative attribute, right? Like, oh, nobody understands my burden of being a husband and father. It can be stressful. And that's the part that I'm starting to question a little bit. You have support groups that come together for people that are dealing with certain things, and they rally together and support each other in their situation. I think the difference with memoir men is that we don't see it as a burden. At least I'm starting to rethink that. It is not a burden. If it is a burden, it's because we're thinking it in the wrong way. My wife, before we got married, she had this revelation that God gave her in the form of an illustration. If she was going to entrust herself, she's a very strong, independent woman, and if she was going to entrust herself and submit herself to a man, it would have to be somebody that she could actually trust. And the analogy that God kind of gave her is that, yeah, you are being held in his hands. However, he is being held in my hand. So in reality, it didn't really have to do with her trusting me as much as it was her trusting God to guide me. And that she was able to cope with. She was able to swallow that. She was able to accept that. God, if you got my back and you say you're riding with me in this journey and you got me, I'm down for it. And I think a lot of the times we put, as men, unnecessary added stress to the purpose that we're called to as men. If we adopt that same illustration that my wife adopted, we too will find that our life and our journey will be go a lot smoother. Our job to provide is really not our responsibility. We're just the ones to steward that task physically on the earth. We are the hands and the feet of God on the earth to provide for the family, to protect the family. But in actuality, it is not our job. It is not our responsibility. It is his. So if you're one that, you don't necessarily have the worldview of God being an entity that kind of rules over this, then this concept or idea might be a little bit challenging for you. But most of us who do gather, there's a level of faith that we have. And what I'm simply kind of suggesting, well, not kind of, I am, that we start to rethink our role in this whole thing. I almost feel like a little, like there's a little conceit there, a little pride there when I assume that I'm the one that's in charge of my family, and I'm the one that's supposed to provide and work hard and work a 9 to 5 to provide for my family. Because if I don't, who will? The fact of the matter is, if I don't, God will. See, it is his responsibility. He wants it done. He's just allowing me to participate in something that he's already doing. So as I reflect on that, I'm not burdened by it. There is the weight that I spoke about earlier is actually lifted once I recognize that I'm not in charge of this whole thing. So knowing that I can have peace in knowing that the God of creation, the one who created heaven and earth, has a plan for my wife and has a plan for my child, and simply wants me to coordinate with him, the pressure's off. The pressure is off. And from this point on, with this new understanding, I feel free to just enjoy the ride. I feel free to do the task. Because guess what? If God is the one that is supposed to provide, then he is the one that will allow the provision to be accessible. And so I'm like, okay, God, where's the provision? Because these people need to eat. They need a place to stay. They need to be maintained. They need to have resources in order to continue to grow and progress in their own purposes. Where is it, Lord? And so as I continue to stay in tune with him and get instruction from him, all I got to do is say, okay, Lord, what's next?
Hey, Daddy, I want you to say, see, science.